And welcome once again to Investor's Edge. I'm Gary Kaltbaum, your host. Thanks for being with us today. Glad you're here, ladies and gentlemen. Happy that you are listening. It is October 27, 2025. Hope you're having a good day. I'm not. My Giants stink. The refs stole the game from them. All right, whatever. By the way, the Giants lost by a lot of points. The refs stole the game from them. You want to know where the scam is in sports? Go watch the refs. All right, I'll start with that. Anyway, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do things a little bit different today. It's lesson time. It's let's go back to the past time. Let's talk about precedent, not president, but precedent. Let's talk about history, because history every now and then repeats itself, especially when things can go to extremes, which doesn't happen often. But first, this is Investor's Edge. I'm Gary Kaltbaum. This is serious talk on everything that affects you. We'll do the markets. And the markets today. How's that? Maybe throw in a few other things. And if you do not get this radio show in your city, we'll post it at GaryK.com. We'll also post it on our X feed, the YouTube channel of BizTV, and other podcast apps. And if you'd like to email me, all you got to do is be nice. And by the way, we're in the midst of building out our TV and radio studio. We're hiring somebody. Need to do this a long time ago. Better look, better feel, all that crap. Okay. Listen carefully. This is muy importante. It's the only Spanish I know. Oh, but by the way, I have to bring this up before I get into the market. I lost my earbuds. I had earbuds for my Apple iPhone, and I went to buy new ones, and they had this new whatever, and they have these earbuds now. You translate languages. You put your earbuds in, you press this so-and-so, and if somebody's talking to you in Spanish, it's the greatest. I've put off learning Spanish and Italian for a very long time. I want to learn them both. I'm going to have to do it. I know it's easy to do these days. Anyway, amazing what Apple, man, they really know their crap. October 29th, 1999. October 29th, 1999. The NASDAQ broke out of range, and I can tell you it hit a high of 28.75 in July of 99, hit 28.97 in September of 99, hit 29.23 in early October of 1999, and then broke out on October 29th, 1999. It was up that day, closed at 29.66, up 91 points. Volume was good. It went from October 29th, 1999. The close was 29.66. The close March 10th was 5,048, with a high that day of 51.32. You dropped down for a few days to 44.55. You rallied to 5,078 in 6 days. Imagine 44.55, that's 545, 6. You rallied like 13% in 6 days, did a little bit of a lower top, and then it was party. Market destroyed. Went through an 80% drop in the NASDAQ. I need to point out to you, I want you to listen carefully. The NASDAQ went from October 29th, 1999, close of 2966 to 5,039. You could add that up, right? 2,000 points on 2966. Little over 2,000. What is that, 60 some odd percent? 65? Somewhere in there? I don't know. And during that time, it became what we called at the time, man, the market is just plain one note. We remember that the housing stocks went down to 1 times earnings. And I told you the story. I was working with a young lady who wanted me to help her out. One of her clients was the CEO of I think the major home builder. And we went to visit him and met with him and his CFO and a couple of other top-level people. And it was in the midst of the crazy NASDAQ while the home builders were trading at 1 times earnings. And I remember him asking me, are they ever going to buy my stock again? And I said to him, well, eventually normalization does happen, but I don't know when. And of course, once the market topped, the home builders went up. Anyway, my bigger point is while the NASDAQ went from 2966 to 5132, we'll use the close of 5,048, October 29th to March 10th. Are you ready? The S&P, the close on October 29th was 1363. March, got to make sure I get this number right. You know what the high is on the S&P was? The close was 1527. So while the NASDAQ was in the 60s, the S&P was up 12. And a lot of that was what came out of the NASDAQ. Very one-notish. The Dow, and I'm always amazed when I see this, the Dow on October 29th was 10,729. On March 10th, and I'm not making this up, it was 99.28. The Dow went down about 7 to 8%, while the NASDAQ went en fuego. It became the most one-note market I really have ever seen. And I do recall Oracle was one of our big positions. Remember I told you the story about the doctor, this mild and meek doctor that F-bombed me because I sold Oracle? I think it was up 4 or 5-fold. I don't remember. He was mad we sold. Imagine buying a stock for somebody that went up 4 or 5-fold and they curse you out. I had a triple digits lady that fired me. Crazy. Anyway, we're just letting you know, while the NASDAQ went up in the 60s, the S&P went up 11 or 12, and the Dow was down in those same times. And what happened back then was pretty simple. The market ran away and went into one simple area, for the most part, not 100%. And why does that happen? How does that come about? Well, the reason why I'm bringing this up to you right now is about as important can be. We never predict here. I don't know what's going to happen 6 months from now. I know they are out there telling you what the target price is. My favorite one, so somebody was out the other day saying 31 million for Bitcoin. That was funny. 31 million. Okay. That means somebody has to pay $30,999,999.99 for Bitcoin. Hey, up next, we're going to make some serious points today. Please listen. This is the one and only Investor's Edge. So, what else happened in 1999? Well, the XLF, the financials went from 25.56 to 20 on those dates. The breakout and the high of the NASDAQ. And you know what the financials did 3 days later? While the NASDAQ was croaking, they bottomed. Interesting, huh? For a bit. The industrials, the XLI, went from 28 to 24, while the NASDAQ was up in the 60s. Have I made my point? Good. As we have stated, we do not predict. We interpret. We are students of history. And why did 1999 happen? How does that come about? Well, fear and greed. Just like today. Just like fear and greed 30 years ago. When I started in the business, fear and greed, and my charts were not on a computer. I used a pencil and books. Like 60 years ago, or when the beginning of the markets, fear and greed rules the day. It's just a matter of technology and speed and communications. But what happened in 99 is a couple of things. Number one, the yelling and screaming. And what do we mean by the yelling and screaming? Well, I don't mean yelling and screaming, but the loud people. The loud people were very much in tune with the hot stuff. And you don't blame them. The hot stuff. Back then, we had a gentleman by the name of Dan Dorfman that used to be on CNBC and always had his hot stock of the day or the rumor of the day back then. And of course, you had other people on that network. This is before Fox Business. And it was very much talking about the hot stuff. And that's where retail was jumping on things regardless of price or valuation back then. But here's the bigger part. It's called the big institutions. I'm not talking about Bellevue where they put you in rubber rooms and straitjackets. I'm talking about the institutions, the big mutual funds, the big hedge funds that manage hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. And what is their job? To invest. And where does the fear and greed come in? Well, back then, it was pretty simple because it was so wide. The performance of areas was so wide that what you would have as executives and portfolio managers in their morning meetings. And as I said to you, the Dow was down 8% while the NASDAQ was up in the 60s. During that period, what do you think the executives were doing with the portfolio managers? How the hell do you own these Dow stocks? Why don't you own the hot stuff. And the portfolio managers were like, well, just so you know, the hot stuff, the valuation is ridiculous. All hell will eventually break loose. And look, the home builders are at 1 times earnings. And don't worry, it'll come back. But the home builders aren't moving. And what do the portfolio managers do? Well, they want to keep their jobs. So sell Toll Brothers and buy, I don't know what was back then, Pets.com or some of those names. And by the way, a lot of them topped out before March of 2000. By the way, Amazon topped out in December of 99. But it was, why don't you own AOL? Why don't you own more of it? Why don't you own this? Why don't you own that? How come you own this? And what ends up happening, the fear and greed feed on itself. The fear of losing your job. The fear of woefully doing poorly. And what ends up happening is a wide swath of selling, regardless of how cheap something got, and buying regardless of how expensive something got, in order to be in those things that moved to the point where the Dow was down 8% while the NASDAQ was in the 60s and the S&P was only up 11, and of that 11 was a bunch of tech. That was 99, until it all topped out and valuations went to places nobody knew. I still remember, and this is a true story, there was a guy that wrote up an article in Barron's that said Cisco was going to drop 80%, and everybody laughed. And he actually put this thing, this is why it's going to drop 80%. And he went through all the things about valuation, about how over-owned and over-loved and over-leveraged. And everybody's bought into this thing and is overbought. And eventually there's going to be a glut. And he was 100% right when all was said and done. And it wasn't just Cisco, because I remember Intel. Intel rallied into Labor Day of 2000, into Labor Day. And on Labor Day, the day after, Intel gapped down on earnings. And that's when all hell broke loose. I remember it like it was yesterday. You know why? Because I had known Intel, but I owned Corning. Corning was at a high also at that time after Labor Day, and then everything, what was left, really topped. Do you know where I'm going with this? Because back then, you had an initial drop of 5132 to 3,000 on the NASDAQ. You rallied up to 4,300. 40% rally. And then all hell broke loose. Up next, what about now? What are my comparisons? This is the one and only Investor's Edge. And welcome once again to Investor's Edge. So, currently, for example, today, NASDAQ gapped up, was up 432, NASDAQ 100, 463. Amazingly, advanced declines on the NASDAQ with 24 up, 20 down. Huh? So advanced declines on the NASDAQ today were terrible. How do you go up that much? Well, today, Meta, which has been weak, up $12. Microsoft got an upgrade 2 days before earnings, was up $8. Tesla was up $18. Nvidia up 5.5. That's, I think, the number one name. Google up 9 into new high ground 2 days before earnings. We have to remember that 7 stocks are 60 some odd percent of the NASDAQ 100. And I got news for you. Those 7 stocks, Amazon is not very strong, but ain't hurting anybody, and they report this week. We're just letting you know, we're not even close to the one note type market we saw from end of October into early March of 99, 2000. No, we're not. We're getting there. We're moving towards it. That's all I'm saying. When the S&P breaks out Friday, but only 53% of the S&P stocks are above the 50-day moving average. When the NASDAQ goes up like it has, but my left screen of technology stocks that are on the weaker side can't even budge and more are breaking down, it's noteworthy. So we're just letting you know and want you to listen carefully. Semiconductors, especially the ones that say AI. Qualcomm, which has been pretty dormant, announces today artificial intelligence chip. It was up $34 at one time today before it finished up 18, which is still a good day. So semiconductors, especially with the artificial intelligence. Data centers, data storage. I'm not so sure the energy names right now because they're on the weak side. That's the GEV symbol and the VST. We're just letting you know. Just letting you know. Those are the main areas. We're just letting you know. The semiconductor equipment makers, data storage, data centers, other miscellaneous technology. Not all. And as I look at my middle screen, and I said to my peeps today, boy, the restaurants are still in a bear market. The housing, I wouldn't call it the biggest bear market, but are in downtrends. The consumer staples are in a bear market. Not all, but most. The insurance stocks are in a bear market. The travel-related, I wouldn't call total bear market, but in decent little downtrends. How about the payroll stocks like ADP and Paychex, bear market? A lot of the auto dealers, bear market. How about the truckers, bear market? The rails are a little bit better because of buyouts. See where I'm going? And of course, all that can change. The regional banks are not great. The lenders are not great. Housing and housing related, not great. Retail, better, but a lot of bear markets. Don't you dare go look where Abercrombie and Fitch has gone in the last 10 months. But better. Oil's better because oil prices went up, but still plenty of oil stocks look like crap. You get it? So just from me to you, particularly now, we don't say this often, you best keep listening. Because if this becomes more 1999-ish, if, we're not saying it is, but if it does, it shall be an end game. And with the numbers being bandied about by these AI type names on CapEx, I still remember 99. It was nothing in 99 compared what the promises are these days. And as I've said to you before, boy, they better come out with these numbers. They better do these numbers. Because if they don't, So we'll keep you in mind. We'll keep you informed. We want you to keep listening. And I want to repeat, full and fair disclosure. We are not saying 1999 is going to happen. We are not saying we're going into an 80% drop when all is said and done. We're just telling you it's becoming more and more one note. And we're just telling you there's fewer and fewer areas I even have to look at this juncture. That's what I'm saying. And you add in something like Qualcomm today, go up $34 because they mentioned something AI. You now have Qualcomm and Alibaba and Baidu and Nvidia and AMD. How many companies now are going to make AI chips? And on top of that, you have the no sales Arama right now also, which, by the way, is starting to come undone. You know what the latest one? Rare earth. Because all of a sudden, everybody's nice with China, and China's not going to do this, that, and the other thing with the rare earth, and this, that, and this, that, and this, that. So rare earth stocks that went crazy. Oh, I got a couple that are down 70% in the last 10 business days. We hope you listen to us. And of course, everything's great with China now. There's no 100% tariff. We told you that. And I have to tell you, on that day, we sold a little, and I ain't ever selling again on when they announce a big tariff, because they ain't doing it. They're full of crap. And as I've stated to you, I'm the doofus on that one. There's no way into an election year they doing 100% tariff on China or any big country, because that will be their doom. Recession, contraction, market drop. And then what are they going to do? So the next bad day when they announce a big tariff, I just may buy blindly. And that's what happened again here, ladies and gentlemen. That's a fair assessment of what happened here. So just letting you know, strong day today. It was a little more than one note. A little more than one note. But leave no doubt, big tech, semiconductors, artificial intelligence, data centers, and some other stuff in technology ruled the day. And if you don't want to buy individual stocks, there's the SMH and the SOXX and the semi. By the way, we're not telling you to buy, sell, short, or cover. We're just mentioning. There's the XLK, which is technology, and there's some other technology ETFs out there. You can just Google the words technology ETFs. Up next, news of the day. This is the one only Investor's Edge. Da-da-da, da-da-da. And welcome once again to Investor's Edge. You know, my Winston, who 3 years ago went to the doctor and they said he had really bad cancer. And they put him on chemo, and after 2 days of chemo was just out of it. So we said, screw this, met with the doctor. What if we don't have him on chemo? They said 6 months. But they did surgery, took out whatever, but they said it's aggressive. 2 years later, checkup. Oh, bad cancer and in a worse place. But he's now 12. Leave it be. Sure, okay. We let it be. Talked about months. He's now 13. But you know what's happened? I wouldn't say he's deaf, but he's definitely losing hearing. I gotta yell. My Winston. I've got to tell you, and as you know, he's my shadow. He's my shadow. That'll be another rough day. And he's 13, so he's lived the long life. You know where he is right now? He's laying on my foot. He's right here laying on my foot. I can't move. Dogs, baby. They are man's best friend. Anyway, I just bring that up because he's laying on my foot. My little cancer dog. In the news, as we segue, by the way, I mentioned the big indices. I mentioned some big tech today, and that was the story today. I can tell you the banks were up. They were up a little bit. My middle screen, there's some retail was up. You got a couple retail stocks at new yearly highs, by the way. Boot Barn, Ross Stores. But then you have a lot that are in, don't dare look at Lululemon. But in the news, I just thank people for sending me things. I got a little video here. It's CBS News reporting from 1982 featuring a 34-year-old Al Gore predicting a quarter of Florida. Now, I live in Florida. A quarter of Florida is going to end up underwater as a result of the coal, oil, and gas we've been burning for 100 years. Just want to let you know. It's 43 years later. Al Gore's worth, what, $250 million off of this? He still gets interviewed like he's some sort of guru, even though he's lied out his arse. Just letting you know that was in the news. Actually, it wasn't in the news, but it was sent to me, and I thank you. It was Dan Rather of CBS News. And just remember, these people, what they are? Con artists. And in order to con you, they have to scare the crap out of you. The world is ending. That's how this guy's becoming mayor. Oh, you need me. Don't worry, everything's going to be free. Anyway, Al Gore was in the news, and you know, I got to hand it to him. One of the great cons of all time has made him about as what? Did a movie which was total bullcrap. Been preaching it. Started green companies. And I don't have any evidence, but you know he got big multi-zillion-dollar grants from the government on it. How do we know this? That's what Joe Biden did in his last few weeks. Well, somebody did with the auto pen. Handed out billions of our tax dollars to con artists and scammers from D.C. Billions of dollars. They created climate change companies out of thin air and made up stories where they're going to spend the money. And there's no accountability and nobody's going to go to jail. Stacey Abrams got $2 billion. There's nothing. There's nothing of a person who, by the way, is one of those people that claims she won the election. It was all rigged. She doesn't get blasted for that. If they really did an audit, holy crap, what they would find. And Leo DiCaprio, God bless him, just got a big award on this climate thing. And after he's done with that award, got in his big SUV, was taken to his private jet, and went to the south of France on a 150-foot yacht. Don't you love these people? We just want you to remember this. Don't be conned by the con artists. They're getting wealthy off of their con. And they're telling you what you have to do or else, and they don't do anything about it. They don't practice what they preach. You can't hate. Hate's a big word, but it's a cliche now. You can't hate these people enough. You can't hate them enough. By the way, I could take a private jet. I don't. I won a charity auction, by the way, a year and change ago, and I did take one because I won an auction. It was fantastic. But I'm a climate guy. I care about the environment. I'd rather get on Delta and share. Just letting you know. That's my dog. He's barking at somebody. Anyway, that is our climate story for today, ladies and gentlemen, because somebody sent me a great video of Dan Rather from 1982. And he's still at it. And he's still trying to con you. And we just want you to know, they hate you. They laugh at you. They're no better than you when you walk in the streets and they're playing 3-card monte and they're trying to rip you off. We'll keep covering it. Hey, you'll have a great evening. Drive carefully. Just remember, we predicted nothing, but we had to outline it because it's heading that way. You have a great evening. Drive carefully. When you get home, do like we do. Make sure you hug your family. Make sure you hug your children. They will feel better. You will feel better. I promise. Stay well. Be well. Thanks for joining. Peace out, all. Good night.